Welcome back to Regaining the Balance. My name is Matt, and today we have a very special video for you guys. This is a video about a document I found written in the 1530s, and it describes some of the events from the St. Felix Flood of November 5th, 1530, that killed between 100,000 and 400,000 people. And I will say this is that one of the things that I've always been wondering about is the idea that there can be a quote unquote reset in the world, a reset or huge cataclysm, worldwide cataclysms, that kind of thing. And I've been following plenty of YouTube channels that talk about this, and no, it's not that I don't believe it, because I do believe that certainly seems to be the case. But I always wondered, why isn't there enough literature about this kind of stuff? That's my question, and I think this video and the video of the terrible deluge of the city of Rome are both good examples of documentation of a reset, of major cataclysms. And they're happening during the same period of time that the European powers are swiftly going over to the Americas, a little bit beforehand, but way after the events of the 1530s, so 1530s through to 1540. That's when you start to see a real pickup of conquistador and action and European kind of takeovers and invasions of the Americas themselves. So, without further ado, the title of this book is called Following the Contents These Letters Contain Lamentable Inundations and Elevation of the Sea Water Raised So Much That the Rivers Burst in the country of Flanders, Brabant, and Holland, and also the islands of Zeeland and a large part of the surrounding area that came the 5th day of November. My brother and companion, I am recommending myself to your good grace so affectionately and with a good heart that it is made possible for me to presently warn you of a piteous situation which happened in parts of Flanders and Brabant, and also in Zeeland and Holland, and the islands and surrounding territory. And I promise you that when you read the substance and matter of this piteous letter, you won't be able to contain the tears of your two eyes. Hearing the affliction of your country and the loss and damage that was done, and in as much a thing of a great admiration, for that I beg you not to become angry in your heart, and consider that what happened was caused by the sins of the people living in those countries, those that don't recognize God or his mother, and who are starting to oppose laws and create sects, so much so that everything was getting corrupt, and it was questioned that the just paid in bearing pain and punishment for their evil in the way that countless people were drowned, killed and submerged under the sand and other soil, and ruined from buildings that quickly fell down and were lost in perdition. So, my brother, I am recounting this piteous and lamentable news that you will not feel pleasure in reading. You should know that on All Saints' Day the weather was beautiful in Flanders, and the day after it started raining, and the following 2 days saw such a rain that it was as if it was created out of spite. And also the said rain was so heavy in a matter of 2.5 days that it was almost impossible for people to go out of their houses or manors, and the rain was falling so thick it broke roads and filled ditches and created new ones whose current flowed towards the rivers and into the sea. Dried by the receding waters, new roads were created from the water flows, and the levees and the sea walls were broken. During the low tide every day, so this is between October and November 5th, by the way. During the low tide every day, men and women alike were told to repair the said ramparts where it was needed. The amount of people who showed up to repair the walls made it possible for most of the work to be done, but on the 4th day of November, the wind was so strong that you could hear it whistling above the sea, and you could see the great disturbance that was congregating by the different winds. So this is the night before. At the same time, the sea rose like whirlpools, and this is my note, possibly referring to a tidal wave, and was lifted as high as a height of 3 lances, about 18 feet. above the sea level. For those lords and governors and multitudes on the ramparts and the levees realized that it was not possible for any living man to go against this powerhouse. The elevation of the said sea scared the life out of the people, and they started leaving. But seeing the waves of the great sea, they were all surprised by the flow of the water. They had reached the ramparts, but it was too late, because they all got submerged and drowned, and this is why they could not warn their wives and children in the villages. After the sea water invaded the flatlands in such a manner that it came to cover 50 leagues in width and much more in length, and wherever the waters would reach villages without fortification, it would ruin houses and drown people up to the top of the houses, which was a horrifying thing because it also swept their belongings away, that it was a piteous case to see. And you should know that the said flood did great harm to the villages, and it also did big and innumerable damage to a few good and large cities of great renown, like the cities of Delft, Le Clus, Gant, Desport, and were almost entirely in ruin, as well as Anvers, that was highly damaged, since all the shops had been filled with sand, and most of the merchandise was wasted, lost, or drowned, and the city was in great danger of being completely ruined if it was not for the breach in the wall that let the water escape, and that it went beyond the towns of Malines, so much that the town of Malines was also in great danger. As well, the towns of Harl and Allen and Debush and other neighboring cities, and also the islands of Zeeland, that were completely submerged by water to the point that it didn't appear that land was inhabited. Also, that said adventure happened on the 8th day of November 1530 on a clear morning with heavy winds. As far as the people that died goes, is estimated at 20 to 30,000, but we can't really count for sure. So the righteous lost an estimated 8 million in this inundation, without the loss of several great figures and good merchants, that God, with holy absolute grace, grants them the forgiveness of their faults and sins. When the said water started going back down, the people stayed on that land and used some device to push back the water a little. When the water had receded, they found deer, pigs, boar, foxes, oxen, and sheep, and other dead animals in great quantity, and they started burying the carcasses as easily as possible. And they were in great fear that the putrefying bodies of the people and animals would corrupt the air, and that pestilence and mortality shall not happen to this country. May God prefer to keep them by his grace. Amen. Written by Pierre Wilstedt. So, there's not a whole lot. If you go to the Wikipedia page, there's not a whole lot on on this particular flood here, which seems like it was one heck of a flood. I mean, the estimates go from 100,000 to 400,000 dead. I'm not sure what they mean here. So the righteous lost an estimated 8 million in this inundation, after they say that it's estimated 20 to 30,000, but we can't really count for sure. I think what they mean originally, when I read this, I thought that meant the 8 million people died, and I was like, holy smokes. But I think that this has to do with I think this has to do with the money situation with this particular thing. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, guys, now that we've done with the main part of this document, we're going to get to the second part. So anyways, let's get to it. Okay, guys, listen to this. This is this is pretty interesting. So, exhortation to the Christian people in regards to the calamities that are presently happening everywhere. That's the title of this. Christian people in Jesus Christ, don't be surprised that so much misery and calamity is happening in this mortal life, and unto which adversity and sad tribulation of Flanders, Zeeland, and Brabant that were wasted and destroyed. You should not be amazed, because God, in whom we believe and did command in these parts of the western world, of which these things were done, it was because the sins of the people, disobeying and corrupted the faith in Jesus Christ. No more, no less. And almost at the same time, he showed such things to the Romans and Rome, capital city of the whole world, so much as everything sounds. Why her? If not by the faults and mistakes of mainly those ecclesiastics that should show a good example and bring back those that want to fall for sin, and they are the ones that do the opposite, for what it is said. You should not cry out a scandal at this end that the world could recognize that our Lord Jesus Christ is generally wrathful in the east, west, northern, and southern parts, for which a few hours realize and know the infinite power everywhere. He has shown signs and prophecies of our coming future, like not long ago, that flying dragon that you can see over a few leagues making a lot of noise, darkening the sky. Also in Lombardia, in the plain of Bergamia, square pieces of metal, iron, dropped out of the sky in the manner of, and this is where the copyist sort of just abruptly stops writing. There's like a couple of letters and then there's a period. It doesn't make any sense to us. I put in a note here that says, here it seems that the copyist just leaves out the rest of the sentence. The last two words make no sense. They don't even look like words, and the sentence abruptly ends. If you guys can figure it out, let me know. But I think this is the part in the copyist where they realize that they may have been divulging a little too much than they should have. Let's just say. Because had they done that with those last two documents for the for the deluge of the noble city of Rome, they probably would have actually changed the names of St. Gregory and they would have taken out Eusebius and all that other stuff because none of that makes sense. None of it. So back to the after the abrupt ending of that sentence. In Germany appeared in the air bloody swords and severed heads and spears and other tools of war, and also several other events that are too long to tell. However, the demonstrations remain obstinate, for which by other demonstrations God the Creator sent us these particular inundations in the east and in the west of the war of tribulation, like in Genesue and Chambéry. Similarly, the ruins of our buildings and houses shows a sign if we don't recognize the benefits of our Creator, bad things come, so much that we will fully feel the punishment of our Lord, for it is questioned to reform the Christian faith generally. Otherwise, on earth we will only see the curses and faults of worldly matters, which things by the holy grace shall keep us and give us good abundance. And that's the end of that. So there you go, guys. The Saint Felix Flood. And when I get into the cataclysms of 1500, I'm going to be bringing all these things back into the fold to basically lay this out in a kind of linear format to show you guys that, like, yeah, like in the 10-year period between like 1530 and 1540, and a little more after that as well, there is quite a few things that happened, and I'm going to show you, and and a lot of weird things happen. Now, the thing with the dragons, I I knew that there were like things about dragons in history, but until I read that and then this just like kind of started poking around, I hadn't realized how many historians talk about dragons, and not just that, but like in vivid detail. So I found this really cool article about dragons that have a lot of really, really great, at least I don't know, footnotes, or they list the source material where they get the information from. And I think I'm gonna do a whole video where I read that article out because it's pretty neat, and they definitely talk about dragons in the 1500s. There's no question about that. And not to mention that they have dragons all over artwork during this medieval period of time. I mean, who knows? But I think it's pretty cool and pretty interesting. This document really kind of, I know it kind of gives us a little bit of what I was looking for myself. Something where somebody at least wrote down that, the amazing amount of calamities happening all at once. Is it a coincidence? Is it not a coincidence? It certainly sounds like this is a reset time period. I mean, to me, no question. And then right after this, when I do the timeline of the 1500s, when I show you guys some of the main points that happened throughout the 1500s, you'll see right after this is when you see a whole bunch of new cities being quote unquote established in South America, and a lot more of the conquistadors going in there and doing their thing, and that's when you see a big push into the Americas after these sort of events, and kind of sort of during it as well. But I don't think it's by mistake. And I think this was a terrible, terrible flood. As you know, you guys could see how big of an area all out of this was. And how many people died? I mean, they don't even really know, but it's between 100 to 400,000. That's a lot of people. That's not a small amount of people, especially in those areas at that time period. So one of my new subscribers happened to post the terrible deluge of Rome into the stolenhistory.org in a thread. In November 1530, a flood from the sea ravaged Calais, France, Antwerp, Belgium, which we read, Cluses, which I think is also in that document, just spelled differently, Gravesend, England, Mardyck, France, Dunkirk, France, Newport, England, and almost all of Zeeland, Denmark. In England on November 4th and 5th, there was a great wind which blew down houses and trees, and then a high tide which drowned the marshes of Essex, Kent, Thanet, and drowned much cattle. In England, there was a great flood all the year. In Rome, Italy, on 8th of October, there was a great flood. In France, the heat was extraordinary during the summer. The fate of Rome, Italy, caused by the Tiber overflowing its banks in 1530, was compared to the carnage caused the inundation of the sea in 1521 that killed 100,000 people. It's pretty amazing finding this little document and having some things kind of confirmed for the community in of itself. Here we have a basically an exhortation of why is there this reset. I think this is pretty cool, and I hopefully you guys do too. So thank you for joining me. I'll end it today. Thank you for joining me, and make sure you hit the like button if you like the video, and subscribe. Hit the little bell button. Hit the all for all the to get all of our notifications. And and if you like this video and you want to share it with other people, please do, because soon enough I'm gonna have a good link of a bunch of these different videos all together that will really create a nice linear story and essentially act as proofs, so to speak, on the idea of an actual reset and a documented reset at that. So, thanks for joining me and have a wonderful day.